Good morning, you guys. You get me in the deep, dark quiet of 5 a.m. Uh, really, the only time that my house is quiet, and I can kind of talk about the breakdown from yesterday. Now, we started the 6th, still with the cross on the teacher, and this gentleman really did show a lot of grace, and he seemed very sympathetic, even though, the defense did have to get out of him that he didn't lock the door, that a lot of things about the lockdown and school procedures were not done correctly that day. And I think that they also were really good at bringing in grand jury testimony and really being very generous with, this was a stressful situation. We do not believe that you were intentionally trying to mislead, you know, just that they did get him to admit that he may have realized that the sheetrock falling down in his room were bullets. And in fact, in the grand jury testimony, he did say, when I saw the bullets, when I saw the sheetrock flying over by the door, I wasn't going to go into fire to try to see if it was locked. Now he did add that he didn't see cops running over there, so he wasn't going to do it. Again, I do not have any issues with any of the victims, any of the parents, because of what they've been told, because of what has been released in the media, being very pissed off, feeling very upset at officers, because there were plenty of officers. The sad thing in this case has been that there is plenty of blame to go around. And if anyone is to shoulder this blame, it seems like we're picking the most unlikely person to shoulder the blame. Now, we did talk about also that the table, the kind of built in long table, didn't have curtains to further conceal the children. Again, you have a small room. The places that children were told to hide probably doesn't change a lot. This particular suspect, this monster, this was his homeroom and where he had gone to school in this particular building. So I'm guessing if he had to do, drills, things haven't changed much. So unfortunately, there were so many things that went wrong. We then got another teacher, Elsa Avida. She was a teacher in room 111. And thank goodness that we get from her that she's been able to return back to teaching. Now, this isn't something that we get at first, but this was a lovely teacher. She was the only teacher that for was directly by policy. She never utilized the magnets. She never left her doors unlocked. She unfortunately was shot during the assailant's walk when he was shooting through windows. One of those bullets went through and got her left side. Despite that, I mean, we hear how she was able to get her children to safety, how she was able to try to calm them down. This poor woman had to tearfully explain how she was terrified that she was going to pass away in front of these children and scar them even more. So even, in her, what she thought were her dying moments, she was thinking about these kids. And as a parent, it's always our hope that our teachers, that we send our students to a teacher that loves our kids just as much as we do, that cares about them. And if she ever sees this, those students are so lucky that she has recovered enough from her trauma to go back to school. I do hope that having to testify, having to relive that, doesn't take away the joy that she's found again in teaching. Um, this was kind of a fairly standard teacher testimony. We did talk about, the award ceremony, how many of her students left. Only one of her students left because they were going to be doing a really cool STEM kind of newspaper shoe experiment. And talked about that, talked about the officers that helped her get out. It was harrowing testimony, and I don't this was probably the last witness that I could engage with emotionally before I had to kind of, okay, shut it down so that I can, at least make notes and not torture myself. And I do think that the state is playing a dangerous game, because at some point, for your own protection, you turn your emotions off, and then these witnesses that are supposed to have a lot of impact stop losing that impact. Had they kept it very, very straight, facts only, and then had a scotch of emotion at the end, I think it would have been much more impactful. But now it's a layer upon layer, and I have kind of detached, and I don't know what the jury is doing, but I can tell you that this is a lot. I mean, I basically get off stream. Mr. Mo made me a pizza, and I ate and I went to bed. So I don't imagine what the jury is doing, since they can't see that. Now, the defense did again bring up that she was aware that magnets were used, that the Raptor system did not give the lockdown alert until the suspect was already in the building. And just, it was very hard testimony. Then we got Aaron Robin. And this was a very interesting witness, because during her direct, she stated, we were issued magnets. Now, issued implies that this is from a management, or at least from someone of authority. If you say, oh, my teacher, a fellow teacher gave me this, we tend to use words to indicate exactly what they mean when we're not thinking about them. And issued does imply a sort of institutional giving, a institutional kind of decree or condoning of this. So she was the one that said, we do have the magnets. Look, the locks are a pain in the ass. Kids have to use the restroom. We disable the locks. It's also apparent that the school had haphazard training. I don't know what kind of active situation preparedness they used, but literally the way she explained how they were supposed to organize and orient themselves was very lackadaisical. And she even, quote, said, like, so during lockdown, she was asked how you get an all clear. And she's like, well, we're supposed to wait, and get information somehow. It has come to light that not only was the administration of the school, like the principal and the officer or the counselor and stuff, not only were they incredibly hard to reach during this incident, but there was a lot of communication issues with radios and other things for first responders. So it's very, very clear that whatever training they had, there was not a clear, concise plan of what to do, where to evacuate children. It seems like children were being sent directly out into the street and different places. It seems like children ended up in like car washes and houses, and just a lot of different chaotic things that, had this been sat down before, I don't think we would have this chaos. So I get it. It's the normalcy fallacy. It's, nothing ever happens here idea. I get it. But it's very clear that this school district, in whatever form that they planned, it was not sufficient. And in no way is this, to impugn the teachers, but this is definitely an issue that you would think would be addressed. Now, in cross, we did, the defense did get her to admit that the administration knew about the magnets, knew about teachers disabling locks. It was against policy for outside doors to be open, and talked about her grand jury testimony. Now, when the defense talked to her after her direct, in her direct, she seemed very upset that they had only done 2 lockdown drills. It seems like standard operating procedure is once per semester, or one for the fall semester, one for the spring semester. And it seemed like she was very not happy with the sort of lack of that. Now, the defense asked her that question, but since she still works with the Uvalde School District, they withdrew it. And at every point, the defense has really shown a lot of class. Uh, so it was still the teacher thing. And at this point, I basically started writing She's Crying. And it, it wasn't that I am sympathetic. I think every teacher that was there that saved their students and kept them going and kept them, you know, as calm and collected as possible are heroes. Keeping the children, you know, calm in a scary time when you're scared, that's courageous. That's being a leader in a good person. So I'm not trying to, you know, blame the teachers, but there was a general lack of caring and complacency when it came to security in Robb Elementary. We then come to one of the officers who helped with BORTAC and went in. Now, we come to find out that this officer is not affiliated with any of the local police offices. He does have a daughter that goes to the school, but basically he kind of made his mind to go to the school himself when he found out what was happening. He arrived at 11:50. Now, I do want you to keep in mind, this man was brave. He did go in. I am not discounting that. He arrived at 11:50 and BORTAC didn't breach the door until 12:50. So even though this man hauled ass, you know, for Lollapalooza down to get to his daughter, which is something that I think every parent, if we're honest, I know if my kid were in danger, I'm a cop and I can get in there. You bet your bippy I'm a try. So again, on a human level, completely understand it. But it does show just how chaotic this school was, that there was no one in charge, because this man who has, again, a child in the school probably should not be in charge of going in or dealing with anything because of the emotional connection. And we know through testimony that an officer who knew his wife was shot was taken out of commission, basically removed of his handgun and put into a patrol car because he was too emotional. He wanted to run in. Again, completely human and I get it. I would too. But why was this gentleman not checked out? Someone had to know that he had a child. And again, he admitted to going in there to make sure that his child wasn't affected. Again, very, very human thing. But it does show the sort of chaos that was in this scene, that he basically went in with the BORTAC team because no one told him not to. Very, very brave. Again, not discounting anything, but the defense does have to get these things out. We did get some good information. It A lot of his testimony really did, I think, go to show, especially with the defense, how chaotic everything was, how, you know, it was hard to get to the Civic Center, that this gentleman, again, I'm not going to caveat it, human reaction, but as soon as the suspect was neutralized, he realized that his child was not represented in the room. He kept his force multiplier, went to find his daughter, and ended up going to the Civic Center with a force multiplier on his back. You know, I get it. You're one track mind to your kid, but in a place where kids have already been traumatized, there was just a lot of kind of things like that. People attempting and intending good, but it's not an organized good, so it just seems to be a scattershot of crazy. So we did get into that, and it was, you know, very interesting. Uh, just kind of what came out of that particular witness, and he was able to give kind of more fulsome idea of what was happening in those intervening times, they were looking for. You know, they were looking for a Halligan tool, they were looking for keys, they were looking for a map to see how the building was set up. Um, and it's at this point that we start going into the pattern of recross, redirect, recross, and the prosecutor starts getting pretty snarky because, and he makes this comment, because again, the state has basically boiled this down to, if Adrian had gotten directly unseen, hadn't gone to the coach, had been able to see the assailant that he drove by because the assailant was hiding behind or between two cars, then we wouldn't have needed a key. We wouldn't have needed a map. We wouldn't have needed any of this. And the state prosecutor made a very flippant sort of comment again about him, like, I guess, well, if you engage the target, you know, in the outside, you don't need a key or a map. And it was such a dick way to ask something, but it was directly, I think, correlated to the outburst that we saw at as this witness was being let go. He was released from both sides. The sister of the teacher who unfortunately lost their lives, and I would like to say, screw you, prosecutors, because this woman did not need. This is such a human thing, but she was primed by the state. The state wanted this. And this is my honest opinion. They don't have a case. They need that implicit social pressure of, are you going to be able to look at those families in the eyes, those victims in the eyes, and say, no, this man is not, you know, responsible? Are you going to be able to do that? And it's insidious. It's gross because it, again, tells the jury to, it's a very subtle pressure to tell the jury, vote with your feelings, not with the rules, because we've not shown you this. I mean, the state keeps pulling out this stuff like, we've got this big, you know, thing. We're gonna, you know, show the truthiness of truth. And it comes out Adrian looking better. Now, we were wondering if there was going to be a motion for a mistrial because this is the second time that there's been sort of shenanigans. And at what point does it become thoroughly unfixable? At what point is the jury basically being held hostage by emotion and pictures of dead children? And it didn't have to be this way. We have seen examples where both the state and the defense don't do this. Have an argument, and it's gross. So then we come back. Now, the lunch was a bit longer, so there might have been a motion, and it does appear that the judge wanted the lawyers to come back earlier this morning, so there might be a motion for mistrial this morning. We don't seem to be getting CC'd or looped into a lot of the sidebars. We then got Teresa Emerita, and she was basically the office manager for the training facility that kind of facilitated continuing education for Adrian Gonzalez and, I guess, people or officers in that locality. And the big bombshell that came out from here is that though he had sort of facsimile classes about active shooters, Adrian Gonzalez had never had the officially licensed alert training. Now, the state has said he had alert training. I don't know that if this is a function of brand names and there's different organizations that facilitate active pew-pewer training, but it seems as though the school or this training facility, this cop college, pulled like parts of their manual, but not all of it. It does seem like there's something very hinky going on about alert, not alert. So I hope the defense brings that out. It seems like Adrian was an instructor, but he was basically instructed on instructing, not that he had a depth of knowledge of the learning material, but that he could intake the learning material he was given and then instruct other LEOs on it. So it was a bit odd. It doesn't seem like he personally put the lesson plan together or anything. He was just given the chance to teach it. It was very odd, and that's the other thing, is that we seem to be uncovering more and more layers of these issues, um, with the case, with everything. So Nick and I kind of went on a tangent, and if it turns out, again, this is speculation, if it turns out that the school was attempting to use this training non-licensed, you can kiss Uvalde School District behind, allegedly in Minecraft, because the amount that they are going to owe these parents, not for just the issuance of magnets and the doors being unlocked, but now the fact that their officers and people affiliated weren't even trained with the accredited, training. It's looking like a cluster of cluster Fs. Now, it was really kind of upsetting because this woman, she was not a great reader, which happens to be a huge pet peeve of mine. In fact, the only time I would ever get in trouble in school because I was such a goody two shoes is when I was forced to listen to, and as a parent now, I feel bad about it because bless those children for trying to read. But advanced reader and hyperactive person Mo did not take kindly to slow readers and may have shown it on her face and uncontrollable body movements. Anywho, so she did have a problem with unified and cohesive, but we managed to get through, and I do feel bad about for her because she really was just there to bring in the records and doesn't know anything about anything, and then she had to read all this stuff and she's like, I don't know. Our last witness was Ricardo. Didn't get his last name, from Texas Ranger. He was interesting. He was the gentleman that took Adrian Gonzalez's testimony just a little over 24 hours after the incident. And we do get a more understanding of the timeline. And the state brought it out like he was gonna, like, this is the bombshell you've been waiting for. Um, the Adrian Gonzalez that we saw on the video interview seemed very competent, honest. He admitted that he made a mistake. When he was driving, he on the way to the school, he heard person or man running toward the school. Now, the coach that he drove toward was a fairly butch coach, okay? He couldn't tell it was a lady. And it's not beyond the realm of possibility that a male coach in an elementary school would dress somewhat feminine. It's not above that. He was told man, and if you see a, person that looks like a man, you're going to go to it. And the shooter was crouched by the car. So it was a lot of recross forever. So basically, he was not released from the defense, so the defense is holding on to the right to call him back in their case in chief. And then we finally entered the day, with the judge reminding the lawyers that they had to be back early. So I don't know. He did say something about motions, but that is the update. I hope you appreciated it. Sorry, it had to be in the morning, but y'all, I was stick a fork in me done yesterday. I don't think I could have even put a sentence together. So you get me as I'm, well, before everyone wakes up and the house is quiet and I can think a thought. It's my favorite time of the day. So I'm going to go put my general face on and get ready for the day, and then I will see you for Mornings with Mo. Bye, you guys.